Hey, Celtics Nation, we're back at it, and man, there's already a lot to unpack from this first game of the season. I know it's early, I know it's just game one, but still, there's something about opening night that just hits different. You spend months waiting for basketball to come back. The excitement builds up, and then when the ball finally tips, every possession feels like it matters 10 times more. And with the way this one played out, it's hard not to feel a mix of emotions right now. Because yes, there were some bright spots, but also some things that made every Celtics fan want to yell at the TV. Let's start with what went right. For most of the night, Boston played with energy. You could feel the chemistry starting to build, even with a few new faces in a rotation that looked tighter than expected. The first quarter had that spark. The team came out moving the ball, creating looks, hustling on defense, and holding a small lead by the end of the period. But then, in classic Celtics fashion, things started to wobble. The second quarter slipped away, the shots stopped falling, and the Sixers took advantage. You could see the rhythm starting to fade, and suddenly, we were heading into halftime down by a handful of points. But here's the thing. The response after halftime was exactly what you want to see from a team that believes in itself. The third quarter was a statement. Boston locked in defensively, swarming on the perimeter, contesting everything near the rim, and flipping the script completely. They held Philly to just 18 points and looked like they had control again. That's the version of the Celtics fans have been hoping for. That's the kind of defensive intensity that makes this team so dangerous when everyone's locked in. And then came the fourth quarter. And let's be honest, it was brutal. Somehow, everything that was working in the third vanished. The defense fell apart, rotations broke down, and guys were getting beat off the dribble over and over. The Sixers dropped 42 points in that final period, and Boston just couldn't keep up. It was the kind of collapse that hits hard because it felt so familiar. We've seen it before. Strong start, great third quarter, then a late game fade that leaves everyone shaking their heads. It's only game one, sure, but it's hard not to flash back to all those times in recent seasons when fourth quarter leads just disappeared into thin air. Now, part of the conversation has to be about who we were up against. Everyone came in thinking the big question would be how to stop Joel Embiid. But that storyline didn't even matter because Embiid looked nowhere near 100%. He played limited minutes, barely got lift off the floor, and finished with only 4 points. Boston actually handled him pretty well. The real issue? The backcourt. Tyrese Maxey went nuclear. The guy dropped 40 points with ease, slicing through the defense like it wasn't even there. And the rookie, VJ Edgecombe, in his very first NBA game, comes out and scores 34. Are you kidding me? 74 combined points from those two guards. That's not just bad defense. That's a total breakdown. You could see the frustration in the faces of Boston's defenders. Every time they thought they'd forced a tough shot, Maxey or Edgecombe would hit another one. They had complete confidence, and Boston just couldn't respond. Whether it was Derek White, Jaylen Brown, or Peyton Pritchard getting switched onto them, the result was the same. Too many open looks, too many late rotations, too many moments where communication just wasn't there. And in the NBA, if you give players of that caliber room to breathe, you're going to pay for it. On the offensive end, it wasn't all bad, but it also wasn't enough. White had an up-and-down shooting night. Jaylen looked like he was trying to find his rhythm, and Pritchard struggled from deep again. The ball movement that looked so sharp early on started to stagnate late in the game. There were too many possessions where one guy would hold on to it for too long before forcing a tough shot. 16 assists for the entire team just won't cut it. This group needs to be sharing the ball, playing fast, and trusting each other's reads. When they do that, the offense looks smooth. When they don't, everything turns into isolation plays, and that's when trouble starts. Even with all that, the Celtics still had chances. They battled on the boards, they actually out-rebounded the Sixers, and they forced Philly into stretches where they couldn't buy a bucket. But when it came down to closing time, the difference was clear. Philly's guards took over, and Boston's couldn't respond in kind. Maxey and Edgecombe were fearless. They wanted the ball in their hands. Every possession in the fourth quarter, they attacked, they created, and they finished. Boston didn't have that same energy. You could sense hesitation, maybe even fatigue, and it cost them. Jaylen Brown's situation didn't help either. He was questionable leading up to tip-off with that hamstring issue, and while he gave a go, you could tell he wasn't 100%. Still, he put up solid numbers and tried to lead, but the explosiveness wasn't fully there. And that's understandable for Game 1. You're not going to push too hard right out of the gate. But when you combine that with Pritchard's cold shooting and limited contributions from the bench, it creates a recipe for inconsistency. Defensively, the rim protection was shaky. Nemia's Quetta showed flashes. He had a nice stretch where he scored efficiently and grabbed some boards. But overall, Boston didn't intimidate anyone inside. Philly was getting to the paint way too easily, and even when shots were contested, the Sixers finished through contact. You can survive that for stretches, but not for an entire fourth quarter against a team that's feeling itself. And look, I get it. It's just the first game. There are 81 more chances to figure this thing out. But the pattern is what concerns people. You don't want that same storyline again this year, where the Celtics play well enough to win, but find new ways to let it slip late. The potential is absolutely there. You can see it in the ball movement when things click, in the hustle plays, in the moments when the defense locks in and looks unstoppable. But consistency is what separates good teams from great ones. One thing that really stood out was how tight the rotation was. Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Pritchard all logged heavy minutes, while guys like Chris Boucher and Xavier Tillman saw limited time. Maybe it was matchup-based, maybe it's just early season experimentation, but it definitely felt like the bench needed more involvement. You can't have your top guys gassed by the final stretch, especially when the shots aren't falling. You need someone to come in and change the tempo. There were still some positives to build on. The effort on the boards, as mentioned, was solid. Quetta showed promise as an energy guy. White, even on a rough shooting night, stayed aggressive and tried to make plays. And despite the defensive collapse, you could tell the team's identity is still forming. That's normal for early October basketball. Teams are still learning each other's tendencies, rotations aren't fully set, and conditioning isn't where it will be a month from now. But here's the takeaway. You can't let nights like this become a habit. Because while it's just one loss, it's also a glimpse of what could go wrong if the Celtics don't tighten things up. Allowing 74 points from opposing guards is unacceptable. There's no sugarcoating it. The Celtics have to find a way to pressure the ball better, communicate on screens, and rotate faster when help is needed. That's the kind of attention to detail that wins games in the long run. The season is young, and the ceiling for this team is still high. You can feel that spark of potential, that chip on the shoulder energy that's been missing for a while. This is a group that wants to prove people wrong, that wants to show it can compete night in and night out. But that starts with accountability. The players know it, the coaching staff knows it, and after a loss like this, you can bet the film session is going to be intense. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about Embiid. It wasn't about some superstar torching you single-handedly. It was about doing the little things, closing out, boxing out, rotating on defense, communicating, staying locked in for all 48 minutes. The Celtics didn't do that, but they can. They've got the tools. They just have to put it all together. And now, with their next matchup coming fast against the tough Knicks squad, there's no time to dwell. New York plays physical. They move the ball well, and if the defense looks anything like it did in the fourth quarter against Philly, it's going to be another long night. So yeah, game might be in the books, but the real story is just beginning. This team has potential, it has fight, and it has something to prove. The question is, how quickly can they turn frustration into fire? What makes this opening stretch so fascinating is that it already feels like a mini crossroad for the Celtics. It's not panic time, not even close, but it's that moment when a team has to look in the mirror and decide what kind of identity it wants to have. Are they going to be the squad that lets games slip away because of lapses in focus, or are they going to be the one that turns every bit of frustration into fuel? Because this roster, as currently built, has enough heart and talent to make noise in the East, but that only matters if they can sustain intensity for an entire game. You could tell by the body language in those final minutes against Philadelphia that some of the guys were mentally drained. The missed shots were one thing, but the defensive breakdowns, those came from fatigue, both physical and mental. And it's understandable. First game of the season, adrenaline high early, legs get heavy by the end. But that's where discipline has to kick in. That's where your leaders, JALEN, Derek, whoever has the hot hand that night, have to settle things down and make the smart play. The teams that thrive late in games are the ones that stay calm under chaos. The matchup with the Knicks on Friday is going to be a perfect early test for that composure. Madison Square Garden, bright lights, the kind of stage that can either expose your flaws or remind everyone why you belong in the conversation. New York is physical, they're aggressive, and they don't take possessions off. If Boston comes out sloppy defensively like they did in the fourth quarter against Philly, it's going to be rough. JALEN Brunson and Mikal Bridges are the type of guards who feast on hesitation. Give them a lane, give them half a second to read the defense, and they'll pick you apart. That's why this next game isn't just about bouncing back. It's about setting a tone. You can't let one bad quarter carry over and define the narrative for the week. Fans want to see urgency. They want to see fight. They want to see the version of the Celtics that dominated the third quarter against the Sixers, not the one that fell apart right after. And you can bet the coaching staff has been drilling that message nonstop in practice. Defensive rotations, help coverage, communication, it's all about the basics right now. The interesting thing about this roster is that there's a mix of veterans and younger guys who still have a lot to prove. Someone like Nimi Quetta, for example, could really carve out a role if he keeps bringing that energy. He doesn't need to be a 20-point scorer. He just needs to be the kind of player who crashes the boards, contests shots, and brings hustle every single time he's on the floor. That type of presence matters, especially for a team that sometimes loses its edge late in games. Then there's Peyton Pritchard. He's got the confidence, he's got the range, but lately the shots just haven't been dropping. That happens. It's part of the game. But for Boston to stay competitive, they need him to find that rhythm again. When he's hitting from deep, it changes the whole geometry of the floor. It opens up driving lanes for Brown and White, it stretches defenses, and it gives the offense another layer. The Celtics don't need Pritchard to score 30. They just need him to be that spark plug who can turn momentum around when things stall. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In what could go down as one of the wildest maneuvers of the offseason, whispers around the league suggest that the Boston Celtics have somehow pulled off a blockbuster acquisition, reportedly landing Jalen Brunson from their fierce rivals, the New York Knicks. While nothing has been officially confirmed, sources close to the situation claim that Boston's front office has been aggressively pursuing the young point guard, and the buzz is that a deal could be imminent. Brunson, who has been a standout for the Knicks, leading the team with his steady playmaking and clutch scoring, would instantly elevate Boston's backcourt and give them a new dimension offensively. The rumor alone has sent shockwaves through NBA circles, as the Celtics and Knicks have long been embroiled in a bitter rivalry. The idea of Brunson switching allegiances is enough to set fan forums and sports talk shows ablaze. Insiders suggest that Boston may have leveraged a mix of draft picks, promising young talent, and perhaps even veteran contracts to make the Knicks bite. While details remain sketchy, the notion of Brunson donning the green and white is already fueling speculation about the Celtics' championship aspirations. Some pundits argue that this move could make Boston a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference, pairing Brunson's crafty play with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown's star power. Of course, Knicks fans are reportedly in disbelief, with social media buzzing over the apparent poaching of a beloved player. Meanwhile, Celtic supporters are cautiously celebrating, aware that until the league officially announces the trade, anything could still happen. What's undeniable, however, is that the rumor has injected a fresh jolt of excitement into NBA off-season chatter, reminding everyone that in this league, the unexpected is always just around the corner. As the story develops, all eyes will remain on Boston and New York, waiting to see if the Celtics have truly pulled off a move that could reshape the balance of power in the East. For now, though, the whispers are enough to keep fans and analysts glued to their screens, imagining what could be the most shocking roster shakeup of the year. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.